What's going on, everybody? This is Chris K in the Burning the Red Shirt podcast. Here again, talking college fantasy football. What Andrew and I are recently up to. We have a little bit of an announcement. Zach, the third member of our team, has decided he needs to step away for 2 to 3 months until the Arsenal season is over. Is that what it was? The Premier League or something? He can't focus on two things at once.
His exact statement was because Arsenal isn't terrible, isn't at the bottom of the table, if you will. Zach can't pod until sometime in May.
Yeah, well, we do have a rule, kind of like a unwritten rule that, like, if you can't give it your all, you can't show up on the show. So maybe that's what he's, putting on himself. So I commend it, and we look forward to him in May, post spring battle talk. So maybe that'll be a good time for him to come back in.
At that point, we'll be 2 months away from CFB by my count. We're at 4 right now, in case your math was a little fuzzy. Because we're in March. We're in March, and we kick off in August, right? So if you count the months without CFB, it's April, May, June, July. So we're 4 months away.
I like that reasoning. I like it. Yeah. And, with us only being 4 months away, it makes a lot of sense that we have started and already finished our first CFF Championship Series drafts. These are real quick rundown. We've talked about them before. Basically, same 12 analysts or fans of the game like Andrew and myself. We draft 12 leagues, and we each get to pick from each slot, which is fun. It is super unique and completely different than everything else we do because it is a best ball that is tight end premium in terms of scoring, but also in that there's 2 that start. So people do crazy things. Leading into my next thing, Andrew had the first pick, the honor.
Here, let's give a little more context, right? So 12 rounds, 30 rounds, 12 teams, so 360 picks. Double QB, double tight end. I forget how many running backs and receivers and flexes. But decent amount, right? I don't think we've ever gotten through one of these in 2 days. We could have this time if I didn't hog the wheel overnight, both nights. And we finished at what? Did we finish on the start of the third day this time? I feel like that's what we usually average to, but I don't think we've ever jammed it into 2 days. So something to shoot for this year.
I think we beat our typical because this felt pretty fast. I think everybody was pretty much auto draft the last 5 rounds because I was playing softball last night, Tuesday night, and every time I got back in from an inning, it was my turn to pick again. I'm like, what is going on? And then I felt bad, because Kyle, he just yells at you if you don't go fast, and then he's clever enough to make you feel bad about yourself. So the speed was pretty nice on this one, but. Do you want to talk about how your draft went? You have probably the most unique draft strategy of the entire series happen today this week with yours.
Well, you can call it a strategy if you want, but it was really just like a cat chasing cars or dog chasing cars or whatever the Joker line is, right? I realized pretty early on that my level of research, my level of preparation probably isn't where it needs to be relative to our friends or compatriots, whatever that word is, just evidenced by the fact that I had a cheat sheet of players I wanted, and most of them were gone by the early rounds of the draft. So that was exciting. But yeah, I drew the first pick, right? So with the takeaway being this is my only time across all 12 drafts, I will have first pick. And opened it up with two-time national champion Brock Bowers. I was between him, Caleb, and Marvin, and I was able to nix Caleb for 2 reasons. One, I feel it's probably false confidence, as was evidenced by my performance in many best balls last year, where I was really confident about my ability to figure out what late round QBs, and it didn't really work out. But that confidence has returned this year, and that coupled with Caleb getting one less game in these settings. He's got a week 0 game, so I feel like in a tiebreaker, it was easy to break the tie against him. I was pretty set on Marv until I started thinking about the idea of anchoring my tight end premium team with Brock, national champion, dog, I was able to talk myself into it at the end of the day.
I don't hate it because this is such a. I mean, I think preferably I'd like him like 3, 4, 5th pick, like at the earliest. But like, if that's your strategy is to kind of lock in a tight end, I think we briefly on the off the air have talked about like performances of players last season or drafters last season, and a lot of it was tied to tight end, that success or failure maybe. And that was a little bit potentially skewed because like Clint and Kyle won like everything it seemed like, but they also drafted tight end early. So like I see the value in it for sure, and I think every single drafter did because there was maybe 8 or 9 tight ends drafted in the first 5 rounds. So definitely there was a common theme. Now the question here is, let's say you're middle of the first round and Bowers is gone. Do you go like a Brant Keithy or Jatavian Sanders, or does that change your early tight end approach?
Yeah, I'd probably wait. It's irrational love for Brock Bowers, breaking the ties and really leading me to that strategy. I would. So my 4 tight ends, I got Brock, and then I felt really good about getting Jalen Conyers in the beginning of the 7th round. If I feel like it wouldn't have been surprising if he went a couple rounds earlier. He looked awesome once that offense figured out that they don't want to be terrible and swapped out Emory Jones for Gay last year, and they really unleashed him. Dude, Wes, what's his last name? Huber?
Mm-hmm.
Shouted out Jalen Conyers on one of his preview pods, the Pac-12 one last year, but talking about how athletic this dude was, and it's unlikely that he'll ever amount to anything this year because their offense just doesn't do anything with tight ends, doesn't pass the ball effectively. And now they've got Emory Jones coming in, but West loves his high school stats and high school athleticism and all that shit. So he was super early to him. And then we actually saw it play out to fruition when they flipped the switch on that offense in the middle of the year. And now with like Dillingham runs a pretty friendly tight end system too, right? We've seen at Memphis, at Oregon. But that coupled with production that we've seen to date, I think I feel really good about him as my tight end too. I wasn't quite sure what I wanted to do with my other 2 tight ends outside of the idea that I wasn't super interested in investing early in tight end 3, tight end 4, and I wanted to kind of cap it at 4, just given like I wanted to take advantage of drafting Brock first overall. I spent about an hour researching that dude, David Martin Robinson on Temple that Clint got, and I was close to talking myself into burning down a lot of the Brock advantage to get that guy. He had like 70 points in the last 3 games of the season. And I'm reading up on this guy. Yeah, he's had he's broken every bone in his body, overcame some mental health struggles, but those stats are fucking crazy. So I pretty much talked myself into him, and then Clint took him. So then I was like, all right, well, I'll just wait a while longer. And then I was like, okay, here's what I'm going to do with one of my 2 remaining tight end slots. I'm going to draft Oscar Delp on Georgia and cuff Bowers, but also that dude is like a 5-star who looked pretty sweet and athletic in very limited playing time. So I think he could put up some good weeks, agnostic of Bowers panning or not panning out. And then I'll figure out my 4th tight end. And I don't really care if that like a week here, a week there, it kind of doesn't play out optimally because you got 2 tight ends on the same team. It's the Dogs, and they're both awesome players. And then Greg took him in like the round I was going to take him in like the 26th, and my jaw dropped. So then my tight end 3 and 4 ended up, I'm not super stoked about them. I got that BYU dude that transferred to Colorado State. As evidenced by my draft board, I'm back in on Colorado State this year. I think that we see a leap in offensive production. I think they score 20 points this year in a game. I think they get there. One of the most amazing stats from the 2022 season that they did not score 20 points in a single game.
They had one game where they had like 2 defensive touchdowns, didn't they?
Yeah, but they didn't get 20 points.
But I'm just saying, like, you can't score. You can't kick 3 field goals.
And they won some games too. Like, you would think that it would be a truly historically horrendous season with that stat line, but it could have been worse. And Clay Millen led the nation in completion percentage apparently, which is interesting too. Like what a weird season for them. But I'm ready to buy back in. I got Clay Millen. I got the wide receiver too, Justice Ross Simmons, who looked pretty good as a true freshman, and I got the guy that hopefully plays the Cole Turner role this year that did not come to fruition for Tanner Arkin in that disaster of a 2022 season. Dalton Hawker, whatever his name is. He always looked kind of interesting and talented at BYU when he would get the ball. Like I feel like there is something there. There's worse flyers in the 28th round in tight end premium. And then my tight end 4, I grabbed the Wisconsin tight end Clay Cundiff, who had a blow up game in like week 2 last year before getting hurt. It's obviously not the same Wisconsin system, but Phil Longo was North Carolina had 3 tight ends that were catching the ball last year. And
Fickle likes tight ends too, right?
Yeah.
Leonard Taylor and Wild.
Wisconsin's bringing in transfer talent from all over the place, right? But maybe some of the production that's going to come from that passing game won't just be exclusive from the receiver. Cundiff's got a lengthy injury history, but it seems like they're kind of excited about him. Just reading up, it seems like he's talented. So I don't know. I was really grasping at straws at that point and just hoping, hey, I can, between Hawker and Cundiff, I can grab 2 tight ends to complement and supplement Bowers and Conyers.
Yeah, I think overall, I like your draft. It's a little bit different. You're gonna have to hit on the QB. You're gonna have to hit on the QBs, which we'll get into here in a second. But looking at some of your picks, like I like Jace McClellan at the very end of the 4th. Like Derwin Burgess is good. I mean, Barnes is good at the 3rd round. Like Brew, you got Brew in the 15th. Like I'm not even like super high on Brew, but like Brew's been going round 9, 10, 11. So like that's a good pick.
What is the what is the idea that everyone's down on him? Basically, that Squirrel's going to run all the go routes. Thornton or Keaton will play X, and then Brew's just going to get like 5-yard crossing routes, and it's not going to be that valuable.
I just think that Squirrel is the one for sure.
Yeah.
He's like the main guy. And he, like, if you watch that Clemson game again,
I know
he was running short stuff too, like the quick passes and stuff, which is like what you hope Brew would get or whoever, right, that you have interested on that team. I think what concerns me is that like Dante Thornton's super talented, and even does he fall back to receiver 3 again, right? Like, and then Keaton's been there forever, so there's just a lot of competition. I'm not worried about Keaton, but like I think there's enough talent around for sure to be a little bit worried about picking Brew pretty high. But like Squirrel is going super high right now.
I have a soft spot for Keaton. I think that he probably wins the X job from a time and system type deal over Thornton. I think they're competing for the same spot. Brew will have his spot, and I think it'll be off and on, peaks and valleys. Hopefully the peaks are not few and far in between, and they're spiky enough to get into my lineup, which I think is a fair, I think he can get there.
Yeah, Brew at 15 is great. I mean, not an issue at all with that. And I think, all it takes is one injury, and then all of a sudden you have this like amazing CFF talent. That's why I think like Keaton is worth a pick in these things, because like there's a shot he wins a starting receiver job, and worst case, all it takes is one injury, and you're getting him super late. So I do think there's some value in that. I liked your quarterback. Well, let's talk quarterbacks.
The quarterback grade.
Yeah. So I didn't even notice this, and then until you picked 6 in a row, and from the 16th through the 21st round, you picked 6 straight quarterbacks because you had 0 quarterbacks at the time. And I really like Spencer Sanders, who you got at the beginning of the 19th round. I was interested though to see if you would handcuff him. Like, would you take Sanders and Dart back to back? Because you're late enough in the draft that if you're just going to lock in Ole Miss's quarterback, like that can kind of go with the strategy of I'm waiting forever on quarterbacks. Is you're locking in a QB, a top 20 quarterback. You just don't know which one it is, which is perfect for best ball.
Yeah, I should probably revisit my strategy of not handcuffing in best ball. it burned me so badly last year. But the way that I'm aiming to fix that this year, in this draft at least. So last year I would play a lot of coin flips where I thought I had where that weren't actually coin flips, and I was wrong a good amount of the time. But I was also only drafting 6 QBs max, I think, in those drafts, maybe 7. I drafted 8 QBs this time with the idea being, if I'm wrong a couple times, I think I could fall back on my quantity while also having the upside associated with if I get the guys that I'm taking shots on. The idea is, okay, these systems are amazing. I have faith in the talent of the players as well. So if it lands correctly for me, I think that 6 guys out of 8 work just having job. I think I would feel good about that.
Yeah, I think we're a little early in the season too to not take quantity because I mean, literally, you draft 6, one guy gets hurt, you get one position wrong, you get one guy wrong, and then all of a sudden you're thin. I've seen Mike take Sanders and Dart back to back, like mid to late, like 21st round type stuff. So
no Walker Howard.
No Walker Howard. I don't think you have to worry about that. But this did touch on like something that I was thinking and doing in this draft, which was I like the idea of I like a lot of these quarterbacks that are pretty sketchy, but like have insane talent, right? Like Donovan Smith, Malik Hornsby, who I didn't get, Daquan Finn's awesome, but last year getting banged up, it's not encouraging. Guys like Jaden Daniels, who's technically in a QB battle. So like these guys that are kind of sketchy, but I'm getting a little bit later than usual, I think. And what I'm doing is I'm pairing them up with like guaranteed starters. So like worst case, if somebody gets hurt or is wrong, I have DJU, to fill in. I got Will Rogers super late. And I like Sam Hartman just in general, but he's another guy, right? Like, so I'm trying to almost find these quarterbacks that I like that are safer and kind of also trying to 1-for-1 it in a sense with.
You're not worried about Dr. Gulbranson?
No. I think that offense is super interesting. I've been talking to the Canton guys about, how much is DJU going to hurt Damian Martinez and things like that. I can't imagine you have a too deep of a thought behind that, do you?
I don't know. I don't trust DJU to get over the yips. And the good doctor is an actual doctor. I thought the nickname was actually discerned initially from just his name being like something out of a like historical sci-fi book or something.
Yeah.
But no, he's got a doctorate and he's out here winning the Civil War and piloting them to a bowl game. So even though like it was so much fun betting on his unders every week. Because like they would be like 180 yards and just like
less.
But I like him. I'll root for him.
What's interesting is, Oregon State. I don't know how many Oregon State games you watched, but they had that Jack Coletto guy, which is like a linebacker.
Yeah.
I mean, theoretically, DJU can play linebacker and just run the same goal line. I mean, Coletto had like 14 touchdowns the last 2 years. Did you realize it was that many? Like, I had no idea. Like, I knew he vultured, but that felt very high.
And they've had other guys in the past too, not necessarily just doing that, but like that. Do you remember that some guy with the last name Irish would randomly score rushing touchdowns for them? I feel like he was a cornerback. So yeah, they do wild thing. They do wild stuff. But dude, they don't even need to. I don't understand how you can craft an offense like that where in your rivalry game, you're down 21 points in the fourth with like 12 minutes left in the fourth quarter. Don't throw it past the entire rest of the game and win.
Crazy.
Yeah.
That was an interesting weather game too, right? It was like a little bit wet, cold, obviously.
Probably.
Well, it's fun to see that game be exciting because, for a while there, I feel like it was like a Friday game or a Saturday night game, which is always good to like that Thanksgiving weekend.
Yeah, they moved it to it was Saturday this past year. It's moved back to Friday this year. And they moved it specifically for some acronym that I remember seeing, and I'm like, I have no idea what this is. But what must have been, what could have been so important that they moved the Civil War off of the Friday after Thanksgiving? I don't know the answer, but it's back this year in its rightful spot on the Friday.
Of course, right? Definitely, it's like the Apple Cup. I need
Yeah.
that on a Friday. I need it on a Friday, maybe Thursday night. Give me that one too on Thursday night.
Did you see? Speaking of good games at good game times, did you see Oregon State? Who are they playing the first Sunday of the before Labor Day? Not week 0. They open up it might be against like San Jose State or something, but they are. So we get a nice 2-game slate that day, right? We get the rematch of Florida State LSU at night, and I don't know. I don't think a time's been announced yet for the Oregon State game, but that's nice. That's usually a one. Well, in the past, like I feel like 5 years ago, we would have a random day game. I remember like Marshall Purdue 1 year or some shit, but it's nice to have that back.
Yeah, I mean, I don't mind a showdown for sure, right? But like if I can get in like 2 quality games like that, I'm always invested in that.
Yeah, definitely.
And those are 2 fun schools too, right? Like those are 2 good DFS type games to, especially like you get the random ones. So there's some skills that you can kind of show off and early on, because early on is such a shit show in a sense if you haven't done a ton of research.
Definitely.
One thing I battled the entire time was laziness. And I mean that because I just never wanted to look at bye weeks. Like I am waiting for the day that Fantrax, and I'm not knocking Fantrax because their schedules are still changing and things, but I am excited for the day that those bye weeks are uploaded into the system. Did you look at bye weeks during this draft?
No, I didn't. Not once. I don't know where things are going to land. Hopefully my quarterbacks and tight ends, the board's kind of spread out a little bit.
That's the only thing I did was I looked at tight ends. So like the first 3 to 4 of them, I made sure that like they were separate, or I think one overlapped, but that's fine. And then quarterbacks, I did a quick, okay, yeah, not everybody's on the same week. All right, good, whatever. After like the first 5 I drafted. So what did you think of my draft as I drafted? Did anything jump out to you?
When you look at your team, you think
so
all the usual amount of prep went into this, as you can tell.
Of course. I'll tell the people here my first few picks. I went Zachary Franklin, 7th pick. Rome Odunze, the receiver from Washington, 2nd round. Damian Martinez, which is kind of...
Yeah, tell the people about your 4th best player.
Corey Dyches. That's the Maryland tight end. He also has receiver eligibility, which is...
nice.
I'm always down for dual eligibility.
Yeah.
But I just think that offense loses like every single receiver, right? I mean, they're pretty thin. And if you look at his season, I mean, he's pretty consistent. He just needs a couple of things to go his way. 3 touchdowns. That's obviously not going to be great in tight end premium, but I mean, he got a bunch of targets, and I'm just hoping that with all those receivers gone and Tua's brother, right? He's still there, right?
Mm-hmm.
You got to think that he falls into the top 3 of targets with a brand new crew, right?
You would hope so.
God, I hope so for taking him in the 4th round.
Pick.
RJ Maryland, SMU tight end. Are you a fan?
That's a cool one. Yeah, he's so sweet.
So I didn't think he'd make it back to me. All things considered.
That dude's a total alien.
I'm trying to think of what might be interesting in the rest.
So Zachary Franklin in the 1st round. They have so many receivers. Well, they have 3 amazing receivers. DeCorian Clark's coming back from torn ACL, so that's sketchy. It always feels like Zachary finds a way to get there, but I don't know. Yeah, I get you haven't started your famous projections yet, but I'm interested to know how you project. It feels like everything went about as great as possible for their passing game last year, and if things scale back, given how much the wealth is spread out there, I don't know. I would think that from a projection perspective, it would be like, and just how those things tend to be more conservative. It feels tougher for him to get there this year.
I mean, you touched on it. They have a ton of receiver talent. They all return. They also have Frank Harris's 7th year, or is he 6th year? Something like that. Yeah. He's super talented. I think Kavorian Barnes, who you took, is an awesome player. So there's a ton of skill talent there, but they are so concentrated on the top three receivers that it doesn't bother me as much as like maybe like a Tennessee situation or something like that, where that third receiver all of a sudden is picked in like the 10th round, not the 5th or 6th round like we see with UTSA. I mean, his 2021 season was essentially as good. He just had a little bit more touchdown luck. So, I mean, if you're concerned, maybe the offense drops back. I don't know how it would happen with like, they'd have to have maybe horrible offensive line play or something like that, because literally everybody else is back and they're all awesome.
Yeah, it's fair.
That's where I'm at. And I think honestly, I really like the pick, obviously. I do not want to go quarterback in the first round. And I just prefer, I really like running backs from like rounds 4 to 9 range. So I just want to hit on receivers. And I do not feel confident at all in receivers in that 4 to 9 range. So that's more of a need type thing as well, where I feel comfortable with. Hence why I went O'Dunsey in the second round, not like Braylon Allen, who I think is going to be awesome, because there's just other guys there afterwards I like.
Totally. It's so funny looking at your team, and I feel like this is always the case. Like, we just target different types of different players, which speaks to how we just do things differently from an information versus data perspective, et cetera, et cetera.
Who's the guy you hate the most? Which one?
There's so many of them. No way I would take Raymond Davis there. I mean, I love Jalil Farouk, but I understand the argument for like, okay, maybe he's more Marvin Mims in nature and not playing second, third fiddle from a target perspective. He's awesome, so that's fine. It's just weird seeing his name so high up.
Yeah.
From a draft perspective, I was thinking about Eric All. I guess I didn't realize he went that early. Like, I say early as in the 13th round, but like just how tight ends go. So how tight end crazy our league is.
You basically
he actually is a good pass catcher, right?
Yeah.
That's his thing.
He had a big like game winning touchdown against Penn State 2 years ago. Like a catch and run type. In terms of like the tight ends, you basically just times 2 they're round drafted, and that's like where they're being picked in regular, but like other best balls is like a very generic way to look at it. But
that's a good idea.
If you think about the other guys around them, like Mateer from Cincinnati, Mason Fairchild from Kansas, Mazzotti from San Jose State, Gavin Bartholomew, like there's not it gets real thin real quick.
Have we discussed that I'm looking for ways to back Iowa this year? I think that it's I think they're in for a big rebound. I think that they win 9-10 games. I love seeing the public sentiment come, just everyone looking for a way to pile on them for all the stupid mainstream reasons. They were so close. Nate Marquez is the only one who I've seen actually say what was so obvious if you just do some simple box score scouting, that they were like 2 possessions away from winning 10 games last year. And
do you think it's because Ferentz now has a reason to score?
I don't know. I feel like that's probably not going to be super material, but I think that I'm interested to see what their win total number opens at. I would love to see Vegas be influenced by public sentiment a little bit, and just how much social media likes to hate on them. And I'd love to get a number in like the 7.5, 7 range. I don't know if that's realistic. I don't think we've seen the only thing that I've seen available on like the mainstream books is like there's the only win total open right now is Colorado, which is just so funny. It's been open for like 6 months. Not 6 months, a couple months, but yeah, I got Caleb Johnson in here. I would have been interested in that guy Luke Lachey or Lachey or whatever. I think he went in the 5th round. If I hadn't gotten Bowers, that would have been potentially nice. And Eric All also interests me. But I was questioning myself and not really super interested in doing actual research when I saw him going so much later. than so many tight ends that I felt like had less of a track record and less of a tight end friendly system. But happy to hear from you that there's a little less reason to feel sketchy about that.
I like him. I think he's not. I mean, he's nothing crazy. Like he's not Laporta,
Right.
but like he's a solid tight end that can proven to catch to catch the football. He's also, I mean, we love this storyline. He's like best friend / roommates with Cade McNamara.
Yeah.
So if you think he wins the job, which there's no reason for him not to, that's a great leg up. I was talking to Mike about it. I think it's a really good. I think that the question mark is who is the tight end one. The offense can be good for 2 tight ends, but of course,
Definitely.
if you told me that Eric All was tight end 1, I would have taken him in the 5th round. But I think what would be an interesting strategy, which I can say out loud because none of the guys listen to this, is that you can. I think you should take Luke Lachey, or however you pronounce it, 5th, 6th round, and then take Eric All in like the 9th, 10th, 11th round, and just guarantee. I mean, wouldn't you pay to guarantee the tight end 1 for Iowa?
Yeah, it's premium. It's primo.
So I think there's some real validity in it. You speak on the win totals. Do we want to do our first win total series of the year?
You want to do Iowa?
Yeah, let's do Iowa. Why not?
All right, nice.
All right, so they open the season against Utah State at home. Got to feel good about that. Even against
how I feel about
Cooper
Lega, my boy. But it's gonna be tough, dude. It's tough to walk into whatever that Iowa City, right? It's tough to walk into Iowa City when you're a G5 school and come out of there with a win. That's where G5 schools go to lay goose eggs. So we'll give them a win.
Yeah, and I will say the one benefit is Lega won't be hurt yet, so there is a shot that they pull off an upset. Then the classic Iowa move: they play their bitter rival Iowa State at Iowa State in week 2.
So I've been tracking. So unlike win totals, spreads have already started to come out on FanDuel, most specifically for games, and they published this one. And it opened. I don't know where it opened, but I saw it at Iowa -3.5. It's like, okay. I think I agree. I think Iowa's in better shape from a going forward perspective. I've sketched out by how things netted out last year with Iowa State. They also had some coaching turnover. They're still running out Hunter Deckers, presumably. Didn't feel like they ever really settled on running back. They lose their best player, Xavier Hutchinson, and it seems like they had some amazing defense guy also who's getting talked about in draft circles. So I don't know why things are necessarily improving for Iowa State. It feels right to me that Iowa's 3.5 point favorite here. And then I checked back like a week later and was down 2.5, and now it's at 1.5 last I checked. So I'm monitoring that game as well, just from the perspective of if Iowa State somehow ends up getting favored, I'll probably end up betting on that just so I can light some early money on fire. But I think Iowa's in good position to take that game. Historically, it feels like they always, even in seasons where Iowa State is the better team, Iowa plays above their heads, and Iowa State's usually in a little bit of a letdown in that game. And Iowa State, I mean, they got a win pretty recently in that series, I think, but I would give Iowa the win here. I think that how both those teams are likely to trend into this year sets up nicely.
Yeah. All right. So 2-0, and then they play at home against Western Michigan. I think we can call that a win.
Yeah.
Even though the Bourget brother is there, right?
Yes.
And you are a big Bourget guy. I know that too, correct?
Of the Arizona State one, last year we my favorite part about Action last year was so many times, like it felt like even more than usual from Action. We had I'm trying to think of the right way to phrase it. Starting quarterbacks being supplanted from week to week. A guy who was starting one week would not be starting the next week. And you could kind of read the tea leaves and see it coming. And FanDuel would put out player props for the dude who was starting the week before, and he wasn't going to play. So you just fire some obscene amount of money at the under on that and pray the guy gets a snap, right? Our favorite move, the best way to bet props.
Yep.
And I did that with Salopek one week where Bourget took the job. And all I needed was one Salopek snap and didn't get a single snap. So it's just a refund at that point.
Yeah, I think that's enough Western Michigan talk. But yeah, Salopek is so bad too. You just, even if he started or even you didn't feel
the Arizona State guy. I mean, it's not surprising based on where they go to school, right? The Arizona State guy's way better though. The Western Michigan Bourget does not seem very skilled.
He's very Mac-ish.
Yeah,
very Mac-ish. At Penn State, this feels like a whiteout. This feels like a Saturday night game.
We can give Penn State the win there.
I think so too. They play then Michigan State at home, so they are going against Michigan State in 3-1.
Yeah, I don't have any reason to doubt that they're going to be able to come out of there with a dub.
Yeah, I think Michigan State is going to be average, and I think Iowa, we already say, is going to be pretty decent. Purdue at home.
I'm not a huge fan of Graham Harrell, Hudson Card. I mean, it does like just reading. Their coach seems like a cool dude, a good dude, even though he's a defensive guy, so that's strike one against him, right? But he seems like he's doing some, like, just from a personality perspective, there's some things to like, but the thing that made Purdue so interesting and so so much of an upset special type job is because Braum was so amazing as a play caller and getting that team in a position to just do surprising and interesting things on game day that you would never even count them out against Michigan, against Ohio State going into a game, regardless of how they're trending in previous weeks. That you knew that Braum could put a game plan together for them to play over their head. So there's no reason for me to have that same sort of confidence about Purdue with a new coaching staff. So we'll give a dub to the Hawkeyes. Is that game at home?
It is at home. Yep.
Okay.
It'll be interesting to see because Purdue is such a fun CFF team, from quarterback to receiver to the random running back that was always super cheap if you played DFS. And they hired, I think it's the defensive coordinator from Illinois who had an outstanding year. So it'll be interesting. Yeah. Do they turn defensive focused? Do they become like an Iowa light? But yeah, I agree. I think Iowa there. So they're going to be 5-1 now at Wisconsin. This will be interesting because Wisconsin's like a brand new team, brand new coach.
Yeah, I mean, how confident can you be in that game? I will give Wisconsin a win just because I think it's tough to say, hey, they're going to go into Camp Randall. They're definitely going to pull that game out.
So 5-2. They play 4 games in a row at home now. Okay, they play Minnesota next.
At home.
At home.
Yeah, I feel fine giving them a win there. Not too much to say.
Yeah. Minnesota did a lot of weird things with their offense, so I'm interested to see how they actually play because they're the running team that added 4 receivers to block. We would joke, right? Like UCF did. So 6-2, I believe it is. All right, home against Northwestern. That's a win, right?
Yeah.
Home against your boys, Rutgers.
See, doesn't that feel like an easy win for Rutgers? No.
Some would say that. Some would say that.
We could give Iowa a win there.
All right. Home against Illinois. They'll be a pretty brand new team, losing a ton of defensive talented guys, defensive coordinator. They'll have former Andrew Katz guy, Luke Altmaier will be there. They lost Chase Brown.
That game's at home too?
That's at home as well.
You cut out for a second. Did you say it's a 4-game homestand?
Yep.
Dude, does this team play 10 games at home this year?
I don't know.
Every game's been at home.
It's pretty incredible.
But Altmaier feels like the perfect QB for that situation. I'm super interested to see how it plays out. They were able to get a lot out of Tommy DeVito in the way of just getting victories and getting outcomes and results. Altmaier, you're right. He's still in my good graces. But I don't know how you can say, they're going to go into Iowa and win. So we'll give Iowa the win.
Yeah, I'm really curious to see what they do. Isaiah Williams is back, which is really interesting.
I forgot about him, and then you picked him.
Yeah, trust me, I forgot about him too, and then people kept taking them. You know, it's that whole thing. You don't want to be the guy that drafted the guy that's gone. So
Right.
a couple players. I don't know why Devin Maccabee is like that guy for me. I'm like, I think he's back, but I don't feel confident, so I'm just going to skip.
He got put on scholarship. He's back.
Well, I know he's back now, but at the time, you know. All right, and then they finished the season out at Nebraska.
At Nebraska, man, who knows how that team's going to be?
I think
they
win.
They had to. All they had to do, I assume it was at home, given that this year's 2023 is going to be in Nebraska. So all they had to do was beat Nebraska at home last year to get into the Big Ten title game, and lost like 24-7 or some shit.
Nebraska was real bad too. Wasn't even like.
Did Casey Thompson not get picked in our best ball, or did he end up going?
Let's see. He did not get picked.
Yeah, there were definitely some interesting names that didn't go.
Jeff Sims didn't get picked either.
Who? Jeff Sims. Yeah, I wonder how that's going to work out. I mean, presumably that's the reason neither of them got picked, right? I don't really. That it feels like anything could happen with that squad this year. I'll play it safe and give Iowa a win, though, just because of the wide range of outcomes associated with Nebraska. But I feel like the Iowa floor it's the Iowa floor. It's not going to be too low.
Yeah, I mean, we gave them 10 wins there. They play 8 home games, and they play in the Big Ten West. So, like,
man, I wonder what that win total is going to open at, because there's no way it's going to open at like 9.5. I would think it opens at 8.5.
8.5 at the lowest. You got to think, right? Like, everybody knows they play in the Big Ten West. Like, the schedule is not like, we didn't really stretch it. I don't feel like we gave them the loss against Wisconsin. We gave them the loss.
You don't think that Vegas just makes lines off of social media sentiment? That's not the driving factor in their model?
Possible. The only game that we gave them a win that I'm like, okay, it could go the other way, really, is the Iowa State game.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, it is very close to a point flip. I don't know how you can make an argument otherwise, but I feel good about it.
Yeah, so. Well, Zach missed the first one. Spontaneous win series here. But, yeah, I mean, any final thoughts going into final moments here? Going into maybe second draft?
One of the more interesting things in our draft was how the difference between where different players who ripped their knee apart or just were out for the season went in totally different spots in the draft. Well, it didn't feel like there was that much difference between them. Like DeCorian Clark, when did he get hurt? It was definitely like November or something along that range.
Yeah, pretty late.
I don't remember when he went, but it wasn't that late. It was like in the 10 to 12th range, I feel like. And he's so awesome. I wanted to get him, but after reading up on, like, he's still rehabbing the ACL, unsurprisingly, right? But so he goes there, and like Jordan Tyson goes undrafted altogether. That I don't know if did you catch any Colorado games?
He was awesome.
Dude, he's incredible. And everyone knows it. It's wild. Like, I was watching the Colorado-Arizona State game, like one of the 5 viewers of that game last year. And that was like that was Bourguet's first start. And I was like, this dude's awesome. And Conyers is awesome. And Tyson is just going up for jump balls over like 3 defenders. That was the only way outside of running on Arizona State's horrible run defense, that was the only chance they had in the passing game. And that was his like huge breakout game. Then he tore up Oregon, and then he's out for the year. But yeah, everyone knows he's awesome. But the problem is he ripped his knee to pieces in November. Obviously, they're bringing in as much transfer talent as they can. But you would think if he's healthy, he's a starter. But he has to get drafted, and then dudes like DeCorian Clark goes super early. And like, what's the difference really between them from a recovery standpoint? Like, we're not doctors, but just like from a timelines perspective, you'd think all things are fairly equal. I don't know.
Yeah, it is a little shocking. I think people worry about his health for sure, which they should then worry about Clark, right? Obviously. But the big difference is the competition. Like, Clark is at worst receiver 3 as long as he's healthy. And Tyson, there's just so many receivers. It'll be interesting, though. Like, he was incredible with an awful team. does he just take that receiver one title back? And like, what does that receiver one title look like for Colorado? That's like a big question mark too, is like, are they spreading it around a bunch to all these different guys? Are they going to just throw it to one or two? Like, so I think there's big question marks. That is why the difference, but
yeah,
it is interesting. Is there any doubt that Curtis Rourke's not going to be back? I love Curtis Rourke.
Is there doubt?
I don't know. He got hurt.
You mean from like a transfer perspective?
From a health perspective.
Yeah, it's a good question, right? It was an ACL for him, right?
Yep.
Yeah, and
he got his
hurt in prime action, so you're talking November-ish injury. So you would think. I mean, the craziest one, like, I don't know how you can have any sort of confidence that Cam Rising is back in September, even though what's his name, Winningham? Like, that dude is so sketchy with everything. Like, it wouldn't be super surprising to me if he just trots out the dude on like 60% of a knee for their games, like similar to like the Logan Bonner corollary from Utah, from the state school of Utah in 2022. But like, he ripped his knee to shreds in the Rose Bowl. And like, so in January, how is that dude going to be back for a game on September 3rd or whatever it is? And we're banking 2 top 10 tight ends on the health of him. Like, I don't know if anyone is confusing the milk farmer or whatever that dude's the backup profession is. I don't know if anyone is really baking into their expectations that dude is going to help 2 tight ends get to justify value in the top 10 rounds.
I will say I have not taken Rising, or maybe just once late, but I am now a little bit worried about taking Yasmin and Keithy early because of that comment. It'd mean 9 months. That's pretty fast.
Yeah, Yasmin went early too, right? I mean, just like everyone else, I would have liked to have 9th round. Yeah, that's rich. That's the price for any sort of surety associated with your tight ends, right, in this league. He seems really, really athletic and awesome, and we saw him flash it in a kind of a limited role last year. So you can dream on it, and he probably gets there if the passing game is at all decent, but Rising has to throw something of a wrench into that.
Yeah. One quick note on Curtis Rourke in Ohio. I love Curtis Rourke, Sam Wiglis. I think those are like awesome if Rourke's healthy. I think one thing to be worried about is the fact that obviously he got hurt end of November, but then also they play week 0. So like it's twofold. Like, he's got 2 bye weeks in a best ball. And also, like, that means he's got to be ready a week earlier. So
who do they play week 0?
The only good part about it is they play San Diego State, which is like theoretically one of their hard, like that non-conference hard opponent that they always play for money, is the game that you don't need to worry about a dud. But I mean, I guess it doesn't matter if it's week 0 or week 4, right? I guess you could say. So you're not paying for week 2. You're paying Rourke for week 7 to 12. But awesome. Well, I'm glad that we could hop on and talk a little bit of best ball drafts here, do our first win series. Hope everybody enjoyed it. And schedule's a little bit crazy these days, so we're hoping to keep it consistent once a week. We just don't know what days. So just bear with us till the season's here in 4 months, and we'll get it rolling.
Go
Have a good
Hawkeyes.
one, everybody.